I'm John. I recently started working with Naturetrek in November last year. Prior to that, I'd actually been a Naturetrek client and had some fantastic wildlife experiences in places such as Ecuador, the Kruger National Park in South Africa, Finland, Poland on the Lynx tour, where we managed to get European lynx on the very first night, which was a great experience. And then in December of last year, I was lucky enough to go to the lodge at Pico Bonito, and I also did the optional pre-tour extension into the Honduran Highlands, which I'm also going to talk about as we go along. Okay, so as you can see from the map, Honduras, and Paul has already mentioned this, is also located on what's known as the Central American Isthmus, which is just a fancy way of saying it's part of a narrow strip of land with water on either side, which connects two larger bodies of land. And in this case, that is the North and South American continents. Honduras is bordered by Nicaragua to the south, El Salvador to the west, and Guatemala to the north. And although it might look like it from the map, Honduras, in fact, doesn't share a land border with neighboring Belize. Honduras is located in the tropical climate zone and forms part of the Neotropics, which is the area comprising Central and South America, including the tropical southern part of Mexico and the Caribbean. This means that it enjoys a typically tropical climate. And understanding what this means in practical terms is really important in preparing to visit, especially if it's your first time in the tropics. The days are typically warm with some high humidity and the possibility of a very heavy shower at pretty much any time of the day. Average temperatures range from about 79 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit in the coastal lowlands, and it's a bit cooler in the highlands, so average temperatures will range between 61 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit there. It's probably also worth saying at this point that your guides will generally know what sort of weather to expect day to day, and will therefore advise you to either bring waterproofs or to be in shorts, depending on what the forecast is. And if necessary, the guides will also change your itinerary accordingly. So, for example, we were due to go to the Cuero y Salado Wildlife Refuge midweek, but the weather, which can be incredibly localized, wasn't looking great for the wildlife refuge, and would therefore have had a significant impact on the range and number of species we saw. So we swapped around the activities on our itinerary, delayed our visit until the Friday, and had a fantastic time with a wonderful array of different species on show, which we simply wouldn't have seen if we'd stuck to the original plan. In terms of time zone, mainland Honduras is on Central Standard Time, so it's 6 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time. As it's near the equator, you can expect roughly 12 hours of daylight each day. It's generally dark by about 6:30 in the evening. It's usually lighter for longer on the coast, which is where Pico Bonito is located. And depending on weather, it can get darker earlier in the highlands at around 5 to 5:30. So how do you get to Honduras from the UK? There are no direct flights from the UK to Honduras, so group tours will leave Heathrow and transit through the US, typically either via Miami or via Houston, and arrive here at the regional airport of San Pedro Sula. From there, you will transit in a minibus to the lodge at Pico Bonito, and that is a journey of approximately 3.5 hours by road. Flight time from the UK to the US is approximately 9 to 10 hours on the outbound flight, but slightly quicker coming back. You'll overnight in the US, and then your flight time from the US down to Honduras is about 2 hours 20 minutes from Miami and around 2 hours 45 minutes from Houston. All of your road journeys will be taken in a comfortable 15-seater minibus with aircon, So although some of the roads in Honduras aren't the best, they do tend to be considerably better in the coastal areas than in the Highlands. And your driver is an experienced driver and will be doing his very best or her very best at avoiding all the potholes. So when is the best time to go? Well, typically our departures range from early November through to the end of February. The reason we do this is because it avoids the rainy season, which typically runs from June through to the end of October. It's also worth noting that over the winter period, and Paul has already mentioned this in his talk about Costa Rica, enormous numbers of North American migrant bird species funnel down the isthmus to their wintering grounds in Central America and the northern end of South America. So it's a fabulous time to see some great North American species, as well as all the resident bird, mammal, and other species. I personally loved being away somewhere completely different at Christmas, but if family or other commitments don't allow you to be away then, early to mid-Feb is also a great time to be in Honduras, and that coincides with the start of the breeding season. And again, otherwise difficult birds to see could be quite showy because they're busy establishing territories and beginning the search for a mate. Okay, moving on to the accommodation. This is what awaits you in Honduras, the fabulous lodge at Pico Bonito. So it's an award-winning spa lodge set in the heart of 250,000 acre Pico Bonito National Park. And it has its own 400 acre reserve dominated by lowland tropical wet forest. What you can see here is the main entrance to the lodge, which has a newly renovated restaurant, a good sized swimming pool and spa facilities, and chalet style accommodation set around the beautiful landscape gardens. There are a number of well-marked trails that you can explore at your leisure, although it's best to go with your guide if you want to venture further, and guided walks around Pico Bonito will be a key part of your itinerary. Okay, this is the view from the veranda where you can also see here the dining area outside, and this is where you are most likely to take all of your meals. There is extensive inside space if you prefer, which I will show you in a moment. The mountain that you can see in the background here is Pico Bonito itself, after which the park is named. And in Spanish, this means beautiful peak. And I'm sure you'll agree this is a stunning view to be greeted with at the start and end of every day. A great spot for a sundowner and to discuss the sightings of the day before, during, and after your meals. Okay, this is the inside of the lodge's restaurant. As I say, you can sit inside if you prefer, but when I was there in December, our group were always sat outside, and outside is where you're likely to go through checklists and discuss plans for the next day. There's an a la carte menu to choose from, serving typical Mesoamerican, so that's Middle American cuisine. It includes things like chicken, pork, beef, fresh seafood, locally grown herbs and vegetables. There are also vegetarian and vegan options available. And house specialties include a coconut milk curry, seafood soup, and medallions of beef dusted with coffee and cacao. Okay, this is one of the standard cabins, which comes equipped with double beds, large double beds, large ceiling fans, which you probably won't need because it's quite cool at night, and ensuite bathroom, toilet, and shower facilities. The laundry service at the lodge is excellent, and I would encourage you to pack light if you can and try and make use of the service. So, you know, I used it a number of times and items were returned the same day, pressed and folded, which is a really great backup if you've been on a muddy hike or got caught in a rain shower in your favorite clothes and you want them cleaned quickly. There are also a number of limited number of superior cabins available at a supplemental cost if you're interested. Okay, so onto the wildlife. One of the wonderful things about Honduras is that it is largely unspoiled. And what I mean by that is that it has not yet become saturated by tourism like some other sort of more fashionable destinations. And what this means in practical terms is that you are likely to be the only wildlife group in any given region, and possibly even the entire country on any given day. This means long periods of wildlife watching without interruption, which is absolute bliss, I must say. And it will more often than not be just you, your guide, and the magnificent surroundings with its wildlife. The wildlife is not habituated, and therefore what you see is truly wild. So your first day at Pico Bonito will probably be spent orientating your way around the lodge grounds on the network of trails that run throughout the park. There are several species of hummingbird that regularly visit the nectar feeders, including the crowned wood nymph, which you can see here, the violet saberwing, the purple crowned fairy, long-billed hermit, rufous-tailed hummingbird, and white-necked Jacobin. So obviously you can take a leisurely morning or evening if you wish, just sitting on the veranda admiring a range of bird species that come in at close quarters. Your walks around the grounds of Pico Bonito initially will include a visit to Toucan Tower, and that is located 200 meters from the lodge center. And this offers views from an elevated ridge which overlooks the Rio Coloradito and the surrounding forested slopes, which are covered in tropical, secondary, and gallery forest, as well as some areas of plantation. So this will probably be your first opportunity to look for the lovely Caatinga, with some patience you should see. We were lucky enough to see both male and female. Lovely Caatinga tend to be more prominent. So that was what we saw to start with, but with some patience and some good observation. We also got a feeding flock of lovely male Caatinga, and I think for me it's one of those birds which perhaps you don't quite understand the significance of when you and just how appealing they are when you look at them in a book, but when you see them in real life with this striking red breast and blue coloration all over, you can really appreciate why actually this was has been a revered bird in Central America. You should also begin to see a profusion of species like woodpeckers, flycatchers, trogons, wood creepers, honey creepers, manakins, parrots, arasaris, and toucans. All of these species are possible within the grounds of Pico Bonito and sort of within spitting distance of the main accommodation. It is worth saying at this point that this is not exclusively a bird tour. You are looking out for birds, but also mammals, reptiles, insects, and amphibians. It's just that particularly in the tropics, birds are the most abundant taxa that you will see. But we're going to move on and see and have a quick look at other possible sightings as well. So in terms of mammals, we regularly came across a family party of white-faced capuchin in our walks around Pico Bonito, as well as the species Paul mentioned earlier, the Central American agouti, which is a small to medium-sized rodent which often darted across the lodge lawns. There are also other larger mammal species at Pico Bonito Lodge, but these tend to be much more elusive or nocturnal or both. But you really do get a sense when you're there that wildlife, big and small, is around you all of the time. And one of the ways you pick up that is that there are a series of camera traps around the lodge perimeter, and you can actually go into the reception area and view the footage. And the camera traps have captured species such as ocelot, puma, even jaguar walking the trails. In fact, an ocelot did once come, not when we were there, but did come and park itself on the hotel lawn early one evening, to the amazement of all who were there. But as I say, this is an extremely rare occurrence. Okay, as well as walks during the day, there are night walks around Pico Bonito. Target bird species during these walks will be birds such as great patu and Guatemalan screech owl, as well as many other reptiles and amphibians that might be active. The lodge has its own frog pond, where there's a healthy population of red-eyed tree frog. And if you're interested in moth trapping, speak to your guide, and that is something that can potentially be arranged. So on both the Highlands extension tour and at Pico Bonito, the guides were willing to give up their free time after they've done the night walks to go spotlighting for mammals and herps. But I must emphasize that this is entirely at their discretion and in their free time, so we can't guarantee this. During the night walk on the Highlands extension tour, we came across an opossum, as well as two species that you can see now. The species on the left is the smooth helmeted iguana, and the snake on the right is the blunt-head tree snake. We also had Jamaican fruit bat in the Highlands, so there's great opportunities to add to your day sightings if the guides are willing. Okay, as well as the wildlife that the guides will find for you, there's plenty of wildlife that you can find yourself. These include a range of butterflies that were easily seen on the feeders in the middle of the lodge lawn, which were the feeders were also visited by bird species such as collared aracari. My personal favourite around the lodge were the giant blue morpho and the butterfly that you can see in the middle here, which is the owl or owl-eyed butterfly. Both the blue morpho and the owl-eyed butterfly are regularly seen sort of lazily flapping their way around the lodge. And if one comes towards you, you need to duck out of the way. They are that big. Some of the other butterflies that I just loved because of the names included pink cattle heart, the small spotted flasher, the Julia longwing, the Guatemalan cracker, and possibly the best of the lot, the pointer sister. In total, we saw about 50 to 60 species of butterfly during our stay at Pico Bonito and exploring the surrounding area. So if that's your thing, they are definitely well worth keeping an eye out for. Just a quick word on the guides and how best to use them. Your guides are the experts in terms of knowing what the very best habitats to visit, the times of day that will be most productive, and also the likely behavior patterns of the species you're trying to see. If it's going to be a fleeting look at a particular species, they will tell you in advance, and you need to be ready to go in looking through the scope or your binoculars. And if it's likely to be a more prolonged view, but requires absolute silence beforehand, they will say so. So one of Naturetrek's core principles is that we place you with the very best guides available in that in that country or that region. And my advice would be to stick to your guides as closely as possible when you are moving around a group and listen to what they're telling you. It really does make a huge difference in terms of what you're likely to see. And sometimes the birding and wildlife spotting can come incredibly thick and fast. So you really need to be kind of on your toes and as I say, listening to your guides as closely as possible. At Pico Bonito, you'll have two guides and they work in tandem to do their very best to ensure that everyone in the group sees and hears whatever you're looking for. On the December tour that I was part of, we were a group of 13, which is quite large, but our guides did a brilliant job of making sure that we saw everything possible. Okay, as well as wildlife spotting in and around Pico Bonito, you'll venture out by road to some reserves and some locations in the local area. The longest drive that you'll do is about 2.5 hours each way from Pico Bonito down to the River Aguan Valley and the area around Olanchito. This is primarily to look for Honduras's only endemic bird, which is a species of hummingbird known as the Honduran emerald. If you do the pre-extension tour, you'll also have a chance at the Honduran emerald in the highlands, but in the lowlands, it can be found in a small area of tropical dry thorn forest. This is actually located on an army base, and therefore comes with some ready-made protection from general disturbance, which gives you an excellent chance of seeing it. We actually saw 2 individuals on our visit. The 2 images you can see here of the same bird, but the picture on the right shows the iridescence of the bird's gorget, the throat patch when it's hit by the sunlight. So this is a special bird, and it's well worth the effort to try and find it. The same day we'd stopped in an area which our guide told us was really good for lesser roadrunner, although they could be really elusive. And the last time that he tried to locate them, it took him nearly 2 hours. We got incredibly lucky because we spotted 2 birds by the roadside from our minibus, so it took no time at all, and that was another great tick for the day. Okay, one of my favourite days of the whole trip was our visit to the Cuero y Salado Wildlife Refuge, which is a 35,000 acre site of rivers, lagoons, mangrove and forest right on the Caribbean coast of Honduras, but only an hour's drive from Pico Bonito. This is a place that has a really wide range of species, possibly partly due to the diversity of habitat. Depending on the size of the group, you'll probably board one of 2 boats, each with one of your 2 guides, and slowly cruise the channels looking for wildlife. Possible bird species include agami heron, boat-billed heron, which we can see here, bare-throated tiger heron, bat falcon, laughing falcon, and lesser yellow-headed vulture. You'll almost certainly see yellow-crowned night heron and ringed kingfisher. We also saw lesser nighthawk and lineated woodpecker. 2 of the really special birds that you'll spend time looking for are sungrebe, and again, one of my personal favorites, russet-naped wood-rail. We were lucky enough to see both on our visit, as well as a range of other species: black and mantled howler monkey, long-nosed bat, raccoon, black caiman, and American crocodile. So it really is a special place to visit. An optional day trip that you could do from Pico Bonito is to the Cayos Cochinos, which is a collection of 15 little barrier reef islets on the Caribbean side of Honduras. Now, on this day, you might have a difficult choice to make because the rest of the group will do a longer hike up into the cloud forest around Pico Bonito, and one of the key species they'll be looking for is toady motmot, which the group that went got. Myself and 2 other guests opted for the excursion to Cayos Cochinos, primarily to see the pink boa constrictors. And we can see one of those here on the left. Now, just in terms of managing expectation, I will say that part of the day will be spent snorkeling. But if you go primarily for that, then you really need to have a discussion with the people that are going with you, because the best coral reef is in deeper water, which you will be able to access. But firstly, you'll need consensus among your group that that's what you are going to do, and you'll also need to be a competent snorkeler, as you will be in open water. I went on this excursion, and I went mainly for the pink boas, which we found. So what you can see here is a juvenile, and again, just a word of warning. I would say that if your trip to Cayos Cochinos coincides with the weekend, it's also worth bearing in mind that the islands have other visitors, and some of them do pick up the adult boas for selfies, and the adults promptly then disappear into the forest, leaving just the juveniles behind. But if you do want to see a pink boa, then you've got a very, very good chance of seeing a juvenile at the very least. We did also see a couple of other bird species that you won't get elsewhere. Those included the Yucatan vireo and Cannevet's emerald. And we did also come across what you can see here on the right, a juvenile masked booby, which we spotted on our way out to the island, and that is really uncommon from the area, and therefore that was a real highlight as well. Okay, and just a quick final word on the pre-tour extension. This is really well worth doing. So this is the pre-tour extension, full-day extension up into the Highlands of into the Highlands of Honduras. Yeah, it's particularly worth doing if you are targeting some key bird species which are next to impossible elsewhere at sort of lower elevations. One bird that is possible is the Honduran emerald, and that's possible in both the highlands and the lowlands. But the three key species of the highlands really are the resplendent quetzal, the keel-billed motmot, and the wine-throated hummingbird. You'll bird from two locations in the highlands. Your first accommodation will be the rustic Gloriales Lodge, and then the well-established and much bigger Panacam Lodge. And you will also, during your time in the Highland on the extension, you'll visit the Tigre National Park, probably for 2 days running, a full day, and then go back the following morning to look for any other species that you've missed. And you'll also bird around Lake Yajoa for a whole range of wetland species. And in terms of numbers, that was probably one of our most productive days. We did see between 70 and 80 bird species. So the extension tour is well worth considering. Just bear in mind you do need to be a committed birder and want to see those target species, because that's primarily what you're going to be focusing on. We were lucky enough to see all of these species on our pre-extension tour, so so that was really good. Okay, right, that concludes my talk on Honduras, the lodge at Pico